I'm hiking my feelings, working with all the natural healing. We are the makers of lives in our community, working to set myself free while I'm hiking my feelings. Hiking my feelings.
What do you think about that?
Amazing. I cannot
Isn't
get
it?
enough.
Except Good morning. Sydney's got a microphone. We will start in less than a minute, but thank you for being here. How's everybody feeling? Shoot, let's go. Well, we're gonna party. We're starting early. All right, so welcome to Pavilion 1. If you are here for healing the land, healing ourselves, you're in the right place. If you're confused about where you are, out that door are more rooms, and there's signs in front of the rooms. But I think if you're here, and I love that. My name is Sydney Williams, and I'm surrounded by brilliant women on this stage. And before we jump into our introductions and what we're talking about today, I just want to acknowledge stuff's not right, y'all. I don't know how you guys are feeling, but we have been preparing for this presentation for over a month. Every single week when we meet to review what we're talking about, we're like, how are you doing? The first 30 minutes of any of our meetings, we are checking in with each other, we are getting the pulse on what's happening, and I hope that you guys are doing that for each other, or that you at least have some place where you can. If for some reason you don't, and you're like, I am in my body and just really overwhelmed with everything, I am here all week. My name is Sydney. Come find me, girl with the curly hair, loud voice. I would love to just go for a walk and listen, because we need spaces where listening is possible, and we need spaces where we can talk about real talk, what is happening in our industry. Today we're going to be talking about partnerships and collaborations between individuals and organizations and indigenous tribes. If you love what we're talking about now, I'm going to say go to your app and favorite the session at 1:30. These three beautiful women will also be expanding on access and indigenous partnerships. So if you are like unsatiated by what we talk about today and you cannot wait to hear more, 1:30 p.m. Copy? Okay, great. So on with the show. Welcome. This is Wellness in the Wilderness, healing our lands, healing ourselves. Like I said, my name is Sydney Williams. I'm surrounded by brilliant people. And we're just going to go down the line and introduce ourselves, and then we have a great conversation in store for you today. The intention of our panel today is to talk about how an individual can make tremendous impact, and how organizations can be the bridge between individuals and place, and individuals and other communities to bring everything together. Because what we know more than ever, given this situation that we find ourselves in, we need collaboration, and this conference is a really amazing opportunity for us to come together, more so than we already planned to do here, but we have such a unique opportunity to support our partners in beautiful ways and to support each other in beautiful ways. So I'm Sydney, I'll be talking again in a second.
And good morning, everyone. My name is Caitlin Martin, and I am the Stewardship Programs Manager for Grand Staircase Escalante Partners. If I seem nervous, it's because I live in Escalante, Utah, which is about a town of 800 people. And while it would be amazing to have a McDonald's, we are around 2.5 hours away from the nearest McDonald's. So being in Vegas around so many people is a little overwhelming. Yeah, I'll pass it to Kristen.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Kristen, and I am the Volunteer Programs Manager for Grand Staircase Escalante Partners. And really, I second everything that Caitlin said. I also live there as well, and I'm incredibly nervous, overwhelmed. The city is big. There's a lot happening here. So I'm going to pass it off to Georgie.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Georgie, or Georgiana Ponyesva. Everyone calls me Georgie. And I'm coming from Third Mesa of Hopi, out in northeastern Arizona. I am born for the Rabbit and Tobacco tribe, clan, and we are ancestrally connected to a lot of these lands that are out here across the Colorado Plateau, and I am a contracted tribal liaison with Grand Staircase Escalante Partners, and we did some work with Sydney and her group this this last year, and it was really wonderful. So thank you for having us here today.
Yeah. Let's all breathe.
It's good. It's good. Let's all breathe. Everybody take a big deep breath before we talk. I'm doing this for me, but you might as well join me. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna need like 10 more of those. Okay, so I'm Sydney. I'm a lot of things. I'm an author. My book is called Hiking Your Feelings, Blazing a Trail to Self-Love. The audiobook just came out, so if you love my voice and you aren't annoyed by it, and you want to hear some really fun stories about the Trans-Catalina Trail, definitely download it, shameless plug. Also, I'm a wilderness first responder. I'm the founder of an organization called Hiking My Feelings and also Wellness in the Wilderness Consulting. And through both of those organizations over the past, since 2018, my husband, who's in the back, Barry, wave, say hello. We've hosted more than 500 events around the US, connecting people to place through mindfulness, stewardship, and movement, like hiking. So today we're going to be discussing our hike and heal format that we started with our partners in Sequoia National Park back in 2022, and how we brought that to Grand Staircase to expand on the work that we're doing. And so a little bit of history. My connection to the outdoors, guys, I grew up in Kansas, and yes, there are outside places, but I was not outdoorsy. So for me, my connection to nature, like when you hear the statistic about how Americans spend 95% of their lives indoors, that was me. I was so disconnected from nature that when I had a healing experience in nature, I didn't know what to do. I didn't have language to articulate it. All I understood was what I felt in my body and how like emotionally, mentally, spiritually, I felt better after spending time outside. Where I grew up, the only kind of healing that was air quotes legit was from generally an older white fella in a white jacket with a stethoscope around his neck. So for me to go out into nature and have these experiences that were healing for me, that every type of healing modality had not yet been able to help me tap into, I was just blown away. And so before I had access to traditional like clinical therapy, I tried journaling, I tried meditating, I tried coloring books, I read every Brene Brown book under the sun. When I didn't have access to therapy, I was like, what can I do for myself? And hiking was the thing that helped me use the tools that I had gathered on my healing journey and actually put them into practice. I survived a sexual assault when I was in college, and hiking is the thing that helped me connect those dots and heal from that. And when that happened, all of these things that I had tried to do healing leading up to these hikes in 2016 and 2018, everything I tried, I would be meditating and I'd have a flashback, and I'd go into fight or flight, and then I'd shut down and I'd never go back to that particular activity or that thing that I was trying to heal, because what I was trying to heal was actually causing more harm. When I started hiking and I went backpacking, it was the first time where I was able to move through that fight or flight response. So all the extra energy that was building up in my body, all of these flashbacks, all of this I gotta run feeling, I actually had something to do with it. And in the process of hiking across Catalina Island in 2018, I was able to connect the dots between the various traumas that I had endured leading up to that point and how they had helped me, well, not helped me, how the way that I was coping was not helpful. Prior to what I now call hiking my feelings, I was eating and drinking my feelings. I would drink a bottle of wine to myself more often than not each night after work just to get down from the day and to help me fall asleep. Or I would eat everything in sight. And in 2018, I was like, I'm like hiking my feelings instead of eating or drinking them. So that's where it came from. And on that hike in 2018, where I was connecting these dots between trauma and disease and my mental health on this hike, when I got back to cell service, the first call that I made was not to my friends or family who wanted to make sure I didn't die on this expedition, right? The first contact that I made was with the Catalina Island Conservancy. Those are the people that manage that land. And I sent them a DM on Instagram, and I was like, hey, this trail has changed my life, not once, but twice. I would love to help. How can I help protect and promote this place? So the girl from Kansas who didn't grow up camping, who knew nothing about being outdoors, who went and hiked across an island with nothing but delusional confidence, too much gear, too tight shoes, and a pack of tarot cards, ended up being somebody on this stage who is here to now share with you how an individual can bring impact to communities across the country should you be so motivated. Now, I'm not gonna say everybody should go hike across an island and then sell all your stuff and do what I did and live in a 98 Chevy van for 6 years. If you want to, I can give you all the tips, and in fact, I might be selling that van soon. It doesn't run well, but I could give it to you if you wanna go on my little journey. But the whole point of this whole thing this week is to talk about how we can bridge those gaps between individuals that have a lot to contribute to your organization, that are fired up about the places that you have dedicated your life to protecting and preserving. Find those people, give them an opportunity. I am so grateful for Joshua Tree National Park Association. They were the first park that gave us a chance, and we were the first people to develop wellness curriculum for their Desert Institute. Up until that point, it was traditional outdoor ed. It was plant identification, it was animal tracking, it was plein air painting. All of these things are great and get people connected to place, but how can we bring people into these different spaces and help them heal? So the hike and heal format, before we pass it off to our other partners here, the hike and heal format is as such. So the wonderful folks at Grand Staircase Escalante are going to tell you about their incredible volunteer program. And we had a chance to volunteer with them. I met Caitlin at Outdoor Retailer in 2022, or 23, yeah. And then we came and we did a volunteer trip with their group just to see what it's like. We did a cool fence monitoring project to see a migration pattern and see if the fences were safe. And then we brought this all back together and I said, hey, like, can we do what we do at other parks with you guys? Can we add this layer of this human experience to this very beautiful volunteer program that you're doing? So yes, we can. So they're like, okay, well, we do graffiti remediation in Spooky and Peekaboo Canyons. Who's been in the Dry Fork? Anybody here? Spooky, Peekaboo Canyons? Okay, so slot canyons. This one in particular, this wide. So like we've got a group of people of all different shapes and sizes from all different walks of life that are like a little bit anxious about walking through a slot canyon. And the program that I developed, when they said we're doing a slot canyon remediation, I was like, okay, if we're talking about graffiti and the etchings on these walls, what are the etchings in our brain? What are the stories that have been so deeply planted and carried on from generation to generation in our own individual lives that are like the graffiti on the walls? And as we know, canyons aren't getting smaller, right? That's right, canyons don't get smaller, they expand. Okay, great, just checking, I'm not from Utah. The canyons are not getting smaller, they're expanding, and even though it feels really constricting when you're like wiggling through it and like washing off the graffiti, what would be possible if those walls aren't closing in, but they're there to be something to lean on and something to support you? So we take these volunteer projects, we develop a custom curriculum, and this event with Grand Staircase Escalante Partners was the first one that we got to do where we were able to invite and had the support of a tribal liaison like Georgie. And so we were able to hear the indigenous perspectives of how this land has been used, how it's been stewarded, and how it still is today, and all the efforts that they're doing together in their co-stewardship. So that's what Hike and Heal is all about. Before we go into our next section, here's some quick questions. Here's some nice pictures of people looking happy in slot canyons. And then also, so our question for you from an individual level, as you're going through your day and as you're here this week, I'd love for you to think about what inspires you? Continues to inspire you to do the work that you did today. Mine was a backpacking trip, and I was like, I'd like to do this now. And then now we're here. Okay, bye.
Great, thank you, Cindy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was fantastic. But so I guess I'll kind of start on an individual level too, and kind of how our volunteer program at Grand Staircase Escalante Partners got started. So I came, we'll refer to as GSEP or partners. So I started at Partners 4 years ago, and I came to the nonprofit world for the first time. Before that, I was working for the Bureau of Land Management, and then before that, I was working for the Forest Service. And I'm curious, how many folks have been to Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument? Okay, actually, quite a few folks, great. So for those that are not familiar, it's a 1.9 million acre national monument. We're kind of sandwiched between Capitol Reef and Bryce Canyon National Park. Grand Staircase was designated by Bill Clinton in 1996. And it's the first national monument managed by the Bureau of Land Management. So it's actually kind of this experiment that we've been going on now for almost 30 years. And something that's really interesting about Grand Staircase that I saw when I moved to Escalante is, you know, a lot of folks come to the National Monument as kind of a pit stop on their Mighty 5, you know, Utah National Park tour or their Grand Circle National Park tour. So they're first in Bryce Canyon, there's paved trails, there's handrails, there's bathrooms, there's trash cans, there's trail work that gets done. And then, they're on their way to Capitol Reef and they stop by in Grand Staircase, and we have 6 bathrooms on all 1.9 million acres. We have no trash services. We actually only have 1 designated trail on all 1.9 million acres that actually receives trail work. And this is all on purpose because, Grand Staircase is supposed to be this more wilderness park. It was actually designated for its scientific value, not exactly just for its recreational value that we kind of think of for national parks. So I arrived at Grand Staircase and I saw all of this damage happening. There's trash all over the trails, there's graffiti, there's human waste. There's people driving off road because they just don't even know where to camp if there's not a designated campground to camp in, because we only have 3 designated campgrounds with actual fire rings and bathrooms and everything on the monument. And so there was all this damage, and there was also this kind of like great dissatisfaction with folks that were visiting Grand Staircase that were kind of used to this more curated national park recreation experience. And I also saw the Bureau of Land Management drowning in the amount of work there was to do on the national monument. They only have a handful of rangers that get out on all 1.9 million acres, and they just can't go to Peekaboo and Spooky every weekend to remediate graffiti. And also, folks don't know that they're not supposed to leave graffiti. The thing that we see the most in slot canyons is tic-tac-toe boards from kids that run ahead of their parents while their parents are scooching through the slot canyon, and they're bored, and then so they play tic-tac-toe. So, a lot of this damage isn't malicious either, which is a good thing to keep in mind. So I saw this kind of like great disconnect between the two, and I thought maybe at our nonprofit, this is where we could step in and, not only heal the land by addressing these visitor impacts through remediation and trash pickup and, some trail work and raking out vehicle tracks, things like that, but I also saw as an opportunity to heal the relationship between the public and the Bureau of Land Management. So on most of our projects, we obviously bring in volunteers. They come from all over the nation to come volunteer with us. And then we always have at least 1, if not 2, too many Bureau of Land Management staff out there with us. And it drives these amazing conversations between the public and the Land Management Agency. And it helps the Land Management Agency where the public is coming from, and maybe even more beneficial, it helps the public understand what the land management agencies are up against. So it creates kind of this amazing healing relationship, and when you're out there and you're cooking together and camping together and getting work done, we saw it just drove this really amazing connection between all of the people and the land management agency. And then one thing that I was really surprised by when we started this is that it wasn't just healing for the land, the public, and the land management agency, but it was really healing for myself as well during these projects. Southern Utah is a really tough place to be an environmentalist. And I would say from what we learned last night, if Abikwame is kind of like a really great example of everything that was done right. And I hope I don't offend anyone when saying this. Grand Staircase, everything was done wrong. Bill Clinton was burned in effigy in the town of Escalante after the designation of Grand Staircase. And that hatred for the national monument still burns very brightly within the community that we live. And it can be an extremely difficult place to go to the grocery store every day and walk to work. And so when we start doing these programs and we see these people just really care for the landscape and really learn from each other and learn from the landscape, it actually has been extremely healing and just a wonderful part of my work as well. So, yeah.
That was great. Yeah, you're great. Thank you. I am not as gifted and talented as these wonderful women who can freeform speak. So I have written my portion of this. So again, hi, I'm Kristen. I am the Volunteer Programs Manager for Grand Staircase Escalante Partners. A large part of my job is to oversee the on-the-ground logistics for the volunteer program, which includes everything from scouting and planning work itineraries with our partners to leading and supporting volunteer groups while in the field. But most of my career began with the Park Service, interfacing with visitors as a backcountry ranger. The Park Service is positioned to provide an exciting experience for the volunteers, insulated by regulation to keep themselves and the landscape safe, whether the visitor agrees with the rules or not. But for me, this was a one-sided relationship, and at times a rather rigid and black and white relationship. Oftentimes, cleaning up other people's messes because it was my job and very necessary left me feeling a departure from why I was doing this work in the first place. I was beginning to feel cynical, jaded, and disposable, just another body in a pickle suit whose burning passion was quickly dimming. Now working with a nonprofit, GSEP, with its vast reach, working with other organizations and agencies, a sense of hope has returned. It's incredible to see the strength of nonprofits, especially when they come together. We need each other now more than ever. And I feel, at least I feel, we definitely do. And in my work, bringing a group of people together for a cause we all believe in has not only returned my deep devotion for working on the landscape, but has broadened my understanding of how powerfully healing it can be to do this work, which it has been for me. Every trip is its own unique experience, and different groups invite different values, perspectives, and opportunities to each event. It isn't about just putting a shovel in someone's hand and telling them to dig. Outside of keeping volunteers fed and safe while working, we seek to explain the why, the what, and the how of stewardship work on the monument. And after working with Hiking My Feelings, we have learned how to incorporate another why, a more meaningful and thoughtful approach. Intention setting for yourself and your work. We are all working so hard against so many odds, and it's easy to forget, to find my space, it's easy to forget our core intentions. Our team is working towards providing space to include emotion and purpose alongside sweat equity. We have been so grateful to have fostered community amongst stewards of the land, and now with the help of our partners, Sydney and Georgie, we are working towards creating a connected and healing relationship with the land for our volunteers and ourselves. At this point in the development of the stewardship program, we are focusing on building community for the monument as we live and work in a controversial state with limited support. This has required us to do quite a bit of recruiting from outside of the monuments surrounding towns. We've also found that a significant portion of the volunteers that join us are oftentimes white, affluent, and over the age of 60. And even though we are so grateful to every single volunteer that has devoted their time, we know now that we are lacking in historically underrepresented groups. And this is when we were fortunate enough to have started working with Georgie, who has built a bridge for us to reach these communities. So Georgie, I'm going to pass it off to you.
Okay. Ask the question. Read that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. Great question. Okay. What partnerships have you been dreaming of that you'd like to explore?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a heavy one.
that is
That's it.
That's it.
Pass the
That's all
mic.
we can say with that.
You did it. Give it up for Kristen, who was really nervous. Golly, she nailed it. She's an expert.
Awesome. Yes. Well, thank you. And I have been very grateful to start working with Grand Staircase Escalante Partners as a closer relationship. A little bit about my background. I have done a lot, I feel like a lot of things, but my I used to work for the Hopi tribal government for the Cultural Preservation Office for 4 years. And that's kind of how, there's so much that goes through tribal offices and dealing with public lands, and Hopi is very connected. A lot that you see across the Colorado Plateau with from petroglyphs, pottery sherds, and the ancestral Puebloan sites that you see with the cliff dwellings or those sites are all connected to us, and those are our Hopi footprints. So it covers a vast landscape, and so there's a lot of consultation, a lot of work, and so through that work, that's how I first got introduced to GSEP and the work that they do, through just that government-to-government process and working with partners across the different landscapes. Also worked on the Bears Ears with the coalition and doing the land management plan with that, and have background in some of that, so, and spring projects, different things like that. So when I was grateful that when my time with the tribe ended, this kind of just came organically to me to work with these guys. And so it's been a beautiful journey, you know, working in this sector and creating these spaces for bridging the gaps between our communities, because it is healing. The connection to the outdoors is definitely, from a personal level, always been a part of me. I've been through some trauma as well in my life, and it's the only thing that has saved me. From that personal level, as well as from a cultural level, these spaces, it's a part of our culture. It still is. We live very close with the landscape, so we notice everything that is happening, and it's very, very scary to see with climate change, like from the insects coming out earlier because it's not snowing, to everything being confused, and it just goes up the chain. And that's something that has always been a part of our culture. Running has been a part of our culture. These harvesting plant medicine, there's a whole reciprocity that comes with that. So with our, from Hopi perspective, there's, you know, stewardship is a part of our culture and philosophy, same with that reciprocity and that community. But that holistic thinking of the community, not just us as humans, but for all the life that is supported by the earth and these ecosystems that we all love so much. And so running, healing is definitely a part of that, and I see that now. What we see in this modern world is that connection is being lost, whether it's through technology, through our homes, through where we are in the cities. Like even just to pray this morning, it's like, where do I go to the east and how can I see the sun? Where the buildings in the way, and like in the parking lot, you know? So it's definitely like even the earth not being able to breathe. It can be traumatizing for us to come to these spaces. So, and that's kind of the difficult thing in building these projects, is some of our communities are very, very remote. Hopi is very remote. We're totally surrounded by Navajo Nation, which is also, and a lot of Navajo Nation is ancestral Hopi. So you have overlap of landscapes as well. But we all have that tie to it. That's the common connection that we have. And I loved what the speakers yesterday were saying about the value, finding those common values, because I truly believe that that's how we come together, is finding those common values and what we love with these places, and that's how we protect them. So it's been a wonderful journey working, you know, I appreciate these guys listening, and, you know, we've worked it out. So we've been working with cooperative co-stewardship and trying to make things happen and provide access for like our communities, because yes, we have that connection to these landscapes. We have it in our oral history, in our stories, and we know about it, but often who has access to it? Who can get out to those places? And so it's amazing to see some of the participants, the youth that we've taken out there, you know, to go and to have that reconnection and to just see that healing. And it's come organically as like through our projects that we've done, and it kind of just organically facilitates that healing. For us, it's also the spirituality that is out on that landscape, because for us, these landscapes, when they say like, oh, these sites were abandoned, or, you know, oh, where did the Anasazi go? That is a total Western, like, that's archaeologists playing a guessing game. And if that's like, if you actually talk to the indigenous people that are still here, you would know we never left those places. That's a part of our culture. Those are our Hopi footprints. They were left there for a reason. There's a purpose for all of that. And they're still living places. So when you go back, you deposit your prayers, and it's like that rejuvenation, not only for that place, but also for yourself and your soul. And you can have that personal experience with that place. And that's how our oral history continues, because it's not only that story, but it's also your personal feeling. So for the groups that we've been working with, I know everyone kind of has had that same experience with the lands and the places, because you just feel this like rejuvenation, this healing. And without that, if we lose that, what do we have? Not only from like, you know, the healing level, but also from like survival, right? Not only survival as mental health, but survival as a race and all life on this planet, because it doesn't matter how much money you have in the world, it won't save you in a survival 101 situation. We all need clean air, clean water, land, seeds to survive. I don't know how they don't get that, but like that's the basic, you know? And so I think spending time out there, you really understand that, and you have these new ideas and community that we are building. So I'm very, very grateful for that. As Native people, we don't see borders ever, so that's the other thing is like these landscape, put some borders on it, but really these watersheds are connected. The air is connected, you know, the bird migrations are connected. These things are all connected. We are connected. So I am very grateful to, you know, the importance of coming together. That is healing, and that's how we make change. And just finding those common values going forward, I really think that is how we're going to make that impact and heal within not only our communities as humans, but also as the holistic community, as all the life that this planet supports and these public lands support. So that's what I thank you.
Yeah. Do you guys have anything you want to piggyback off of, just like from each other, before we open it up to questions? Any last parting thoughts? All right, well, cool. So does anybody have any questions? Barry's got a microphone if you'd like to ask a question. Otherwise, I'm going to tell a story. So it's up to you. All right. Yay, hi.
Hi, my question is, you all mentioned this is a very remote landscape, so how do you get folks out here for programs? How do you find these people, and are they paying for their travel, like all the logistics?
We'll go down the line. Yeah. Okay, so for Hiking My Feelings programs, specifically with Escalante Partners, I'll let them talk about how they organize their trips, but for our trips, it really just depends. One of the things that was really exciting and surprising about our partnership with Grand Staircase Escalante was the fact that there's only 800 people in that town. And so I mentioned we started with Joshua Tree National Park. We're hosting events in areas that are pulling from major metropolitan areas, right? So like Joshua Tree, we're getting folks from LA, San Diego, all over. In Zion, we're getting folks from Vegas and Arizona. In the Northern California parts, we're pulling from the Bay Area. We have all these major population centers that are close by. So when we started this initiative last year, I was like, I don't know if this is gonna fill. Like just straight up honesty, because I don't know where people are coming from for this. Nobody that was there was from Escalante. Everybody traveled from around the country. We had people from all around California. We had folks from other areas in Utah, somebody from Las Vegas, and somebody from New Mexico. Like we had folks from all over kind of like the Western United States. So for us, for our programs, we're finding people on the internet. I lead with my story, Hiking My Feelings on Instagram is a community of people that are curious about the healing power of nature. And so we all come together to have that experience together. For us in particular, between our work with Hiking My Feelings and our consulting practice, the work that we're doing is really grabbing a lot of people from all walks of life too. Like Caitlin mentioned, a lot of their volunteers, or Kristen mentioned, a lot of their volunteers are white, over 60, and affluent. For us, one of the most beautiful things about what we've been able to build and what we're bringing to these partners that we work with is I've sat in circle with a Fortune 500 executive that is on the brink of burnout and career just fizzling and not sure what to do with their life, to frontline healthcare workers where this is the first time that they've been able to do something for themselves, since the pandemic, if ever in their career, to moms that have just been momming forever, that have never given themselves an opportunity to get out in nature, all the way up to with our consulting company, we develop a curriculum for formerly incarcerated folks in Maryland. So we're doing this on public lands, we're doing this in urban spaces, and really what we're doing is we're creating a space where we can talk about the stuff that's hard. And we happen to remediate some graffiti or restore a meadow and do all that. But the volunteering is so deeply connective between people in place in and of itself. And when you add a layer of self-discovery or developing custom programs, which all of you are capable of doing. Think about the things that inspire you. Like, what is it about the landscape that fires you up? Our partners from Glacier are here. Like, I did an event with Zoe last year at the Glacier Institute, and they brought their energy, and we collaborated in full on that. Sometimes we show up, and it's not the Sydney show, but it's like we're leading the programming. And sometimes we have naturalists from our different parks and partners. So